So now that the Battlefield 6 open beta has come to an end, I feel now is a good time to share my thoughts after playing the beta for roughly 60 hours. This review comes from a relatively new player to the Battlefield franchise, starting in Battlefield 4 and 1, so if my takes are bad, you can just point to that if you want. That being said, there are some things I need to fix, so if you see that this video is mostly about the quote-unquote bad things about the beta, it's not that I just want to empty my bowels all over this game. That doesn't help anyone. No, it's so that DICE can consider these things and make the game a slam dunk come October 10th. With that out of the way, however, let's start with the positives first. Battlefield 6's gunplay is good, but different. I, for one, find Battlefield 5's gunplay the best in the series, and, well, maybe not as sleek as a game like MW19, the guns still look and sound amazing. While there were some guns that were better than others, for the most part you could use every gun without wanting to switch immediately. The gun customization is also very nice. Akin to Insurgency Sandstorm, the Pick 100 gun customization seems like it's going to help balance each gun and prevent issues that COD has had with balancing guns and attachments. Overall, the gunplay feels like it's made by a AAA studio, which is what you should expect. And while I did feel like the guns could have had a bit more recoil to feel more weighty, DICE has already confirmed that they have tweaked the recoil to all the guns, so I can't really complain. As someone who spends most of their time playing medic in Battlefield, I have wanted a soldier moving mechanic for dead teammates for the longest time. And now that I'm finally experiencing it, it's even more awesome than I'd hoped for. Dragging your teammates away while also reviving them is such a cool idea and can lead to more revives than usual. Also, the ability to hard revive someone in an animation or instantly defib them, maybe something stolen from their friends over at the finals, but that's besides the point, is a very nice choice to give the medics. And maybe it's because there is another animation lock to revive, but reviving someone in this game feels much more satisfying than usual, which I hope leads to more medics reviving. Now, I have seen people complain that the movement is too fast for Battlefield, but I disagree. After the huge step back that was 2042's movement, I'm glad to see many of the features introduced in Battlefield 5 come back. Things such as laying on your back, combat rolling, and the god almighty crouch sprinting have returned, while also removing tac sprint, which is great. Running with your knife out is also very viable and can get you across the map very quickly, but at the cost of having no weapon out, though it remains to be seen how beneficial or broken this knife runner will be on the larger maps at release, but only time will tell. The graphics of Battlefield 6 are stunning. The maps in this game actually look lived in and war-torn, which is one of my biggest criticisms of 2042, where everything looked too clean and sterile. There is debris, trash, and dirt everywhere, smoke and destroyed vehicles linger on the map. The War Tapes VAL audio preset makes everything sound so good. For people saying that the next game needed the Battlefield 1 immersion, they won't be disappointed. One of the key selling points of Battlefield 6 was its crazy destruction, and they weren't lying. On a map such as Iberian Offensive, some points like C and B were completely changed throughout a match when the walls and ceilings were destroyed. If you're coming from a game like the finals, I could see why you would be quite disappointed in the levels of destruction, but I don't think Battlefield can, should, or needs to be at that level. In the finals, there are less people and the gameplay is way more focused on what is and isn't destructible, whereas in Battlefield that heavily serves alongside the gameplay. One thing I think they should consider though is the ability to build fortifications like you could in Battlefield 5, even if it was only for a class like the Engineer. Placing sandbags, digging trenches, or building mounted machine guns could help a team fortify an area after it has been destroyed, but it's just something to consider. For a Battlefield beta, this ran surprisingly well. I was able to play at 1440p at ultra to high settings while streaming the game as well at 60 FPS. Sometimes it did dip into the 50s, but it never stuttered or had terrible dips during intense sequences. The servers were also surprisingly stable. I remember during the Battlefield 2042 beta that the servers were constantly killing themselves. And while there was a queue during some times of the day, in the grand scheme of things this was for the best, and even in the queues of 300,000 players it didn't last too long. Overall, for what the game offers, it runs surprisingly well. So that was most of the good. There are probably more things that I forgot, but like I said in the beginning of this video, my overall experience with the beta was positive. Me being hard on the game in this next section is so that if someone from DICE has the opportunity to watch this video, they have the most amount of info to build the best Battlefield game they can make, but it might sting a little bit, so. I'm gonna get my biggest complaint out of the way first, and I don't see people talking about it. Squad play in Battlefield 6 is nowhere near up to par with the likes of previous games, and I think there are a few reasons why. The main cause of this issue is that there is no clear indication on who is squad leader. In older games, you could tell who is squad leader by either looking for their icon in your squad list in the HUD, or by looking for the icon on the scoreboard. In Battlefield 6, this icon is absent in both areas. The only way to know who your squad leader is when the game tells you during the loadout screen before you deploy into the map, and usually during that time no one else is looking for who the squad leader is and is either on their phone, or changing their loadouts. During both weekends of the beta, I could count on one hand the amount of times I had a squad leader who wasn't myself placing an order. This leads me to my next problem with the squads, the missing request order feature from the Commrose wheel. Usually this would be used by people in a squad to get their squad leader to give them an order to follow, and if they didn't place one within a certain amount of time, usually 60 seconds, the squad leader role was then given to the player who asked for an order so that they could place one. This worked great because it made sure that there was always a squad leader who was ordering his squad to PTFO. And while I appreciate Battlefield 6 adding the auto order feature, rarely do people follow these orders and just default to running around aimlessly. And it seems like this was supposed to be in the game, as for players who aren't a squad leader, there's an empty segment of the Commrose wheel where a request order button would be, but it's just not there. My final critique of the squad play is the lack of squad/requisition points. Now, I know most people probably don't care, but in my opinion, it was one of the best features added to the franchise. For those who don't know, requisition points were earned when players in a squad earned points for certain squad-related tasks, such as squad revives, healing, resupply, spot assist, spawning, and, objective captures, defense. These points could then be used by squad leaders to call in reinforcements such as smoke and artillery barrages, V1 rockets, supply canisters, and big old tanks. These call-ins will be so much fun in Battlefield 6, especially the smoke barrage with 6's new volumetric smoke system. This system can also satisfy the Call of Duty players who want side objectives like COD's kill streaks, while also making them play the objective and work with their squad. It's not a make or break thing for me, it's just something that I think would make the game much more fun. Alright guys, this is the second game in a row where people have asked you to just lock the weapons behind classes. Why can't you just do it? It would be such an easy win for you guys as a studio to just listen and lock the weapons. Because right now you have the player base split into two categories. Category 1 is the group of players who play open weapons, but don't really care which route the game goes down. Whether the game chooses open or closed weapons, they will probably enjoy it regardless. The second category is the group of diehard fans who just want closed weapons as the franchise has historically done. And while there may be a few players who fall outside those two, for the most part, that's where we are. Personally, I find myself in the first group. However, if I could pick, I'd rather have the weapons closed and just let DICE earn the easy brownie points. And closed weapons would also help balance the classes, which, oh boy, do they need balancing. In Battlefield 1 and 5, they had the perfect class system: Assault, Medic, Support, and Recon. And while Battlefield 1 didn't have assault rifles, Battlefield 5 did, so for simplicity's sake I will only refer to Battlefield 5's classes from now on. In Battlefield 5, the 4 classes and the roles were simple. Assault had assault rifles and a few semi-automatic rifles, and their gadgets were for the purpose of being anti-tank and anti-air, basically blowing shit up and killing everyone. Medics had the option of SMGs and a few bolt actions to change things up, and as for their gadgets, they all focused on healing teammates and covering themselves to pull off revives. Support had access to LMGs and shotguns, with gadgets focusing on resupplying ammo to teammates and some anti-vehicle gadgets in the mix, but mostly resupplying teammates and helping them. Lastly, Recon had access to bolt action and semi-automatic snipers, with gadgets focused on spotting and getting squad mates into flanking positions. Each of these classes had a unique and important role to the team, and if you had too many of one class, you would lose. Now contrast these classes to the 4 we have in Battlefield 6. Each class, regardless of whether the game uses open or closed weapons, will have access to carbines, shotguns, and DMRs. And I don't have a problem with this. Battlefield 4 did this and it was fine, but Assault has access to assault rifles and an infantry grenade launcher, and that's it. I know they're giving the class the spawn beacon and assault ladder at release, but even with those gadgets, Assault is pretty much useless. In my total time playing the beta, I only played Assault a handful of times, most of which came during the second weekend on Empire State, where I just wanted to mess around with the shotgun and have the capability of using an AR at longer ranges. But once the shotgun gets nerfed, the class will be even more useless. Next is Engineer, which has access to SMGs, anti-vehicle gadgets, and a repair tool. And this, in my opinion, should have been the Assault kit, minus the repair tool and with the SMGs replaced with ARs. And like I mentioned earlier in the positive section, Engineer could have been a class focusing on building fortifications with the ability to repair tanks, while Assault could have blown them up. Then there is Support, which, my god, is broken. Support has access to LMGs as well as defibs, the ability to revive everyone, deployable cover, and a supply bag that deals both health and ammo. Why they decided to make the supply bag do both, I have no idea. I mean, they have field specs as part of the loadout. Why not separate medic support and ammo support into 2 different field specs if they're so keen on these 4 classes? This, combined with the fact that no matter which weapon system they used, open or closed, means that support is just a one-man army that can do basically everything. And again, lastly, there is Recon. Recon, of course, has access to sniper rifles, C4, a motion sensor, and a soon-to-be-removed deployable beacon. And I wouldn't have an issue with Recon if it wasn't for the fact that it's tied with Engineer for being the best anti-tank class in the game. If you can get close enough to a tank, one Recon alone can destroy at full health, and if the weapon system remains open, then Recon will have the ability to run around with ARs and SMGs and kill tanks better than the Assault can. The class system does not have to be this way. They could have legit copied and pasted the BF5 classes, modernized the equipment, and it would have been 10 times better than what we have now. But as it stands now, teams are entirely composed of support and engineers, with a few recons and assaults running around. Also, please ignore the birds outside. I know it sounds like they're dying. I don't know what I'm supposed to do about that. Now, I know everyone and their mother has their own opinions on the maps and if they feel like true Battlefield maps or not. And while I don't think they are totally trash, they could use some tweaks. Some maps and modes just don't work well together. Liberation Peak and Breakthrough just don't mix well, while in contrast, it's the best map for Rush. Had that map extended to the river way down below, it probably could have been a much better and more enjoyable map. Siege of Cairo, although my favorite map in the beta by far, has a bunch of rooftops that aren't out of bounds, which lets people just sit up there. And while up there, you find that they're pretty detailed. Sitting up there makes the map feel like an older Battlefield map, which makes me wonder if they were supposed to be accessible originally, but just got scrapped. Iberian Offensive is okay, nothing too special, but it's very easy to spawn camp the other team, at least spawn camp the NATO team as you can see here. The fourth and final map of the beta was Empire State. I was looking forward to this map during the first weekend, but after playing it, it's not my cup of tea. Rush and Breakthrough are absolutely bonkers. The first sectors in both modes are an absolute nightmare to attack, and in Conquest, the B objective is quite poorly designed, as enemies can come from every direction on 2 different levels. I also found myself running into stores only to realize they don't actually go anywhere and having to run out again. Overall, it feels like DICE went to the complete opposite end of the spectrum compared to 2042's maps. 2042's maps were large and open, often leading to little action, while in Battlefield 6, maps tend to be so close quarters that there is always a gunfight near you. The map sizes for the other maps coming at release have leaked, which does give me hope, but the maps we have now shouldn't be the foundation and goal future maps look towards. Now, I don't want to spend a lot of time here, as I'm sure many of you guys have experienced for yourself, but not every map and mode works well, as seen by Rush in basically every map. Rush also probably should have been a 16v16 mode, but I'm not the biggest Rush player, so I can't quite comment on that. Conquest is Conquest. I think the faults of Conquest come more from the maps rather than the mode itself, so I don't feel much needs to be changed. I didn't play much Domination, Squad Deathmatch, or King of the Hill, but I do wish that King of the Hill was at a larger scale, and that the mode that we have now was a completely different mode entirely. The other two seem fine, but I don't really play small modes, so I don't know. The real disappointment for me though is Breakthrough. I've wanted a modern version of Breakthrough for so long, and now that it's here, it's quite meh. Maps such as Siege of Cairo, Empire State, and especially Liberation Peak have first sector so insanely hard to capture that most Breakthrough games spend most if not all their time in the first sector only. In Breakthrough, each sector should get progressively more difficult than the last, not the other way around, as is the case in Empire State especially. And while absent now, I do hope that they add operations from Battlefield 1 to the game sometime down the line. They already have at least 2 maps in 4 regions of the world. Why not make a 3rd map for them and release them in future seasons, add an operation to go alongside it, and create more world building for Battlefield 6. The trailer did show beach landings, presumably from the campaign, but if they added this to an operations game mode, this alone would sell me on the game. Guys, just add a server browser. While I appreciate the lack of skill-based matchmaking, a server browser, again, is more easy brownie points for you guys. If you could have official servers, DICE approved, meaning XP enabled, portal servers, and other portal servers all in the same easily accessible server browser, you would extend the longevity of the game by many years. It would also be great if you brought back the rent-a-server program so that we could build communities again. I know especially in Battlefield 4 there's a bunch of servers that I frequent and I keep seeing the same people over and over again, which helps build a sense of community. Usually they kick my ass, but sometimes I can kill them and it's kind of fun, Please, DICE, please tone down the spotting. The 3D spotting in this game is insane. By the end of the beta, I was playing as if I was constantly spotted, which I shouldn't have to. I should have the ability to sneak along the edge of the map to execute a flank, but it seems as if anyone who remotely places their crosshair near you can spot you. And while it does say that you are spotted on your minimap, I'm convinced it only worked about a quarter of the time. Now, I know this is a beta, but I hope this main menu is just a placeholder until launch. I don't know why games keep using this Hulu/Netflix design, but it needs to stop. Most of the modes you have aren't displayed on screen. There's just a bunch of empty space here at the top, and while the class customization area is fine, it was still better in Battlefield 5. But the worst offender of bad UI is the settings. My god, why is it so complicated? I have no clue where to look for anything, and settings for HUD and controls are split between multiple categories. It's just dumb. It just needs a complete redoing before launch. As for the in-game UI, it's not that bad. The things I do wish to see would be the enemy hit points adding up like previous games had, the aforementioned squad leader icon next to their name, and maybe the ability to customize the HUD so that, for example, you can place the objectives and ticket counter above the minimap instead of at the top of the screen. Just small things like this would be nice to have. While I have heard some people complain that the TTK is too fast or too slow, I think it's pretty good. Maybe it could be a teensy tiny bit longer, but if it's not changed, it's fine. The real issue comes from the TTD or time to death. Ideally, this should be the same as the TTK, but with how servers work and stuff, they can often be mismatched. This leads to instances where you sometimes die extremely fast, which isn't supposed to happen. Now, I have heard that previous Battlefield games have had this issue before and they usually get fixed, so I'm hoping that it does, but it's just something that I felt should be noted. The final thing I noticed in the beta is the inconsistent pinging in the game. Multiple times I would die next to a squad mate and try to ping where I got shot from, so I could tell them where I got shot from so they don't try to revive me. Half the time they wouldn't even see the ping, and the other half of the time it just wouldn't work at all. Another thing I noticed was that it was very iffy when trying to ping an objective as a squad leader. In previous games you could quickly look up at an objective icon and place an order. In the beta you could do this, but usually it didn't work, or if it did you had to look at it for an awkwardly long amount of time. I ended up just placing squad orders via the Commodores wheel, but most people probably wouldn't go through the effort of doing that. And this ties back to my first complaint about the whole squad play thing and squad leaders not placing orders. It's just something that I think they should look into more. Overall, I had a blast during the Battlefield 6 beta. Maybe it's because I've been started with new large-scale warfare games, but this is the most amount of fun I've had playing games with my friends in a very long time. If you haven't noticed already, which you probably did, I haven't made a high-quality video in over a year. And the last video I made where I was playing with friends was over 3 years ago. But playing with my friends on Battlefield 6 has been so much fun and makes me want to actually make more videos. So if you do want me to make more videos, leave a like and drop a comment and let me know if I should make more. With that being said, this is Duck signing off. I'll see you on the battlefield. Peace.